Which leads me to another wonderful innovation that this organisation have. I think it's kind of covered here. Is it covered here? Oh yes. Bottom right-hand box. As these groups are going along their process of development, each group over time appoints a chairperson and a secretary and it's called the cashier here, but treasurer, literacy and numeracy coordinator, health coordinator, legal rights coordinator, or portfolio and income generation portfolio. So what they do is, you see, because you can see here that there's, how many groups are there? There must be about 90 groups. Yeah. So there's 90 groups, right? Is that right? Yeah, about 90 groups, right. So each group has its own chairperson. So there's real economies of scale. Remember, this is one community. So that on a certain day of the month, every group sends its chairperson to chairperson training, right? And then every group sends its secretary to secretary training, and they have the secretary training lessons, and they have their treasurer lessons, and they have so you see, there's a group of 14 or 15 people in the group, but there's 7 or 8 portfolios, and they've all had training, and then they swap around portfolios. So the chairperson becomes a treasurer, and so they're learning all these life skills, not in a classroom, but as part of their group activities. See that? So, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of great innovations that they've come up with that are so efficient. They're such careful use of time to get the maximum results. So that the result is, I've got the number here. Yeah, this equates to 70 cents per family per week. That's what it costs to run this. 70 cents per family per week.
And Adam wanted to know, have you got any proof?
Okay, so we know, for example, that the groups have all open bank accounts and they've all got savings in them. So that first step has happened, right? And but you see, the thing is that what poverty does is it isolates people from each other because it's survival. So what this group network does, especially when there isn't some of the relational challenges in microcredit. I'll just go here real quickly for those of you who know it, it's a little bit about microcredit. Is that microcredit actually is potentially very divisive in groups, because you see the whole way that microcredit works is that a group gets the loan, they separate it, they divvy it out to their group members, and then every week the loan coordinator comes to collect the repayments. Okay. Now, if one person can't repay, then the rest of the group members have to foot the bill. That's the contract. That's the deal. See? So, can you see potentially the conflict that can happen in groups just by that strategy alone? Because it happens. I mean, you can't help it. Like business doesn't always happen predictably, and so people are supposed to use their money for their business, but then one week it hasn't rained, or there's been disease or something like that, and somebody who's chosen this kind of business can't contribute, and you've suddenly got conflict again. See? Well, there's not the opportunities for conflict in this structure is far less. Sure, this thing is not going to have 90 successful groups in 14 years. There will be 1, maybe 2 groups that for some reason has to disband and whatever. I mean, it's not 100% foolproof. But the goal of First Do No Harm is and to encourage relationship communities so much easier achieved in something like this than in microcredit.
It also spreads the risk, doesn't it? So any little income generating venture, it's one of the biggest problems in very, very poor regions is they're risk averse. They cannot afford business failure, particularly the first couple of little ventures that they do. And so by having the risk spread around 15 people, and maybe 3 or 4 of these groups within a village, and they all pool their resources and their ideas, and they have a few little goat rearing ventures and a couple of little hand looms,
Okay, that happens a bit further down the track. It hasn't started yet
Yeah.
in our project. Okay, so those little business ventures, they start after maybe 2 years, 3 years.
So the idea is that in the first instance, you get a community who start learning how to manage themselves and their money and their community,
Yeah.
and learning the skills they need to do that, so that they're prepared and ready to go into business ventures and generation, income generation.
Yeah.
Down the track.
Not just income generation, advocacy as well, very important.
Yeah.
So that they can start advocating for their community and what their community needs.
Okay.
But in the way of infrastructure,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Actually, within the first year, we've just got the
Report,
the
yeah.
first report here, and there's somebody holding a heifer.
Yeah.
Very, very proud.
Yes,
Their group
that's right.
with that heifer. And that means so much to them.
Yeah.
It's huge because they're all women, and it's probably their first property, and their husbands and partners and fathers and brothers cannot take it off them because it doesn't belong to them, it belongs to the group. So that represents a massive investment for them.
So there you go. One group's got off to a early start, yeah. Which they do. I mean, they all go at their own pace. You see, they very much use. I've sat in group meetings. They very much use the, that self-discovery. I think it's called the Socratic method. Where you don't sort of say, this is what you do next, and it's all prescribed. It's very much like, well, this is what this group's doing, and what do you guys want to do? And this group wants to have a heifer, and this group wants to build a well, and this group wants to plant a garden, and it's all very much like, that's why the training of the coaches is so important. That's why I call them coaches. Is because that's their strategy. It's not teacher. This is the thing you do follow. It's ownership, discovery, self-discovery, all that kind of thing, facilitating relationships. So that they learn themselves. I think I've done my thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.